Hey guys, this is Karan and welcome back to my channel. It is such a privilege to create fresh, new, informative content for you, so it always helps if you like my videos and subscribe to the channel. A huge shout out to all my friends and fellow watch collectors on Watch Enthusiast India, India's fastest growing and largest social media platform for watch collectors. You can join the group in the link in the description box below for all the informative discussions, watch pictures, as well as information on our future collaborations and events. Today I am here to tell you a story of how a young and dynamic independent watchmaking house comes to life. It is a story full of passion and hard work. It is a story of uncompromising attention to detail and insane achievements. It was around a decade ago when a young Frenchman by the name Robin Tallendier was being introduced to very good quality Chinese watchmaking. Over multiple trips to mainland China with his family, he found many examples of classic Chinese watches at very affordable prices. Curious at the thought of what else China could offer, he started interacting online on various watch forums with fellow collectors. In university, he got the opportunity to spend a semester in Beijing and a full year eventually, where he met his friend and fellow countryman Wilfred. Together, they developed the brand we know today as Atelier Wen. Atelier in French stands for workshop and Wen in Chinese stands for culture. Their watch brand is quite literally a culture workshop. Their unwavering commitment to bringing the very best of handcrafted Chinese watches to the masses took off spectacularly with their first ever launch collection, the Odyssey Porcelain. Launched on Kickstarter, this collection was received by collectors with unbridled enthusiasm and equal parts suspicion. Kickstarter scams notwithstanding, Atelier Wen's Odyssey Porcelain collection was a runaway success, with beautiful handmade porcelain dials and signature leaf-shaped hands becoming the USPs. So, two French guys selling Chinese watches and one collection already sold out? What do they do next? Turns out, they step it up and truly make the watchmaking industry and the watch collecting community sit up and take notice. Enter the Perception, a collection of modern watches inspired by Chinese architecture and culture, for which they pulled out all the stops, in the hope of changing the perception, no pun intended, of the levels of quality of watchmaking in China. The standout feature of the Perception collection are these beautiful, lovely dials with guilloche. Now let me tell you the story behind these dials. Guilloche essentially means achieving an architectural pattern resembling interlaced ribbons. It is a skill that has to be mastered with painstaking patience and years, sometimes even decades, of perseverance. It takes a special kind of skill to become a guilloche master, and therefore it should be no surprise that at this point in time, there are barely 35 to 40 such people in the whole world. Most of them, with Kari Voutilainen being a prominent name, are based and focused on the European and Swiss watchmaking industry, with only one based in all of China and in fact all of Asia. That man is Master Cheng Yusai. Long before he was known as Master Cheng, he was a poorly performing schoolboy who was forced to work in low-paying, labor-intensive jobs to meet household expenses for his family. But deep down, he kept the dream alive. Cheng got his hands on an old decommissioned hand-turned engine and went to work on it in a mountain cave. I'm not kidding about that last part, and cultural generalization aside, it took many years to finally arrive at a working rose engine that could produce beautiful handcrafted patterns or guilloche on metallic surfaces. Through reputation and word of mouth, Robin and Wilfred found Master Cheng and fell in love with his work. These lovely guilloche patterns that you see on these dials are painstakingly handcrafted, with each gouge and stroke made with less than 1 mm margin of error. Such a low margin of error means that for every one dial they bring to production, about 6 to 8 are destroyed. What's more, Master Cheng protested that there won't be any economies of scale or massive profits, considering each dial takes 8 hours to make by hand, and that severely limits how many dials a man can make in a year. Undeterred by costs and focused only on bringing the best guilloche to their fans, Robin and Wilfred convinced Master Cheng to work with them despite his protests. They have made good on the promise that as Atelier Wen, they will create a school of design around Master Cheng so that he can train future apprentices in the art of handcrafted guilloche. Look at these beautiful dials. Imagine the hard work and patience that has gone into making each one of these dials worthy of being put into a watch. The main dial has a guilloche resembling fish scales or écaille déposant, which is a traditional circular weave pattern most commonly found on roof tiles in China. The uniformity and symmetry achieved by hand is astonishing, with the only breaks in the dial being the logo and brand name on plain raised plateaus. I'll say this again because of its sheer beauty. Each of these gouges are made by hand, and this lovely pattern is achieved uniformly across all production dials. We also see the step-down ring on the dial that gives the overall watch a lot of depth, which is then surrounded by the raised chapter ring with the traditional Wen pattern that denotes good fortunes in the Chinese culture and architecture. Lastly, we see 12 rhodium hand-applied markers. Time telling is managed via the harmonious signature leaf-shaped hands, which are rhodium-plated on all the dials except the grey dial version, which has heat-treated blue hands. The core collection has 3 dial colors. The grey dial is called Ying, which means illusion and signifies the vast grey of the intangible. The blue dial is called Piao, which means drift and signifies the ethereal blue of the mists. The salmon dial is called Xia, which means hazy but contextually signifies the transitional colors of the sunset. Then, of course, there are a few special editions like the mint green for wrist check and the red and champagne dials for revolution. If the dials are the USP, then the attention to detail on the case and the bracelet are surely the icing on the proverbial cake. The Perception has a unique luster because these cases and bracelets are made of 904L steel, the same grade of steel that is used by Rolex for their watches. This grade of steel has a higher content of chromium, which gives it a longer lasting shine and makes it more corrosion resistant than regular surgical grade 316L steel. This steel is also notoriously harder to work with and more difficult to cut and bend into shape. Therefore, to achieve precision shapes and high-end finishing of this caliber is a testament to how far and high the people behind Atelier Wen think. Uniformly brushed flat surfaces with high-polished bevels are a hallmark of the case and bracelet design. A noteworthy feature is the scalloped concave bezel with a high-polished finish. I don't think I have ever seen a concave bezel in any mainstream watch design. Staying in theme, the concave bezels and concave curved case edges are inspired by Chinese architecture. One might say the case shape is inspired by the Patek Philippe Nautilus, and sure, there may be some distant design similarities, but the Perception is a very unique watch in its own right. The case measures 40mm across. Overall brilliance of design continues with the integrated and flowing bracelet with hexagonal links which mirror traditional windows in ancient Chinese palaces. As previously mentioned, we have brushed flat surfaces with polished edges. The bracelet tapers down only slightly to maintain a modern aesthetic, and it ends in a lovely and highly comfortable fold-over clasp. The brand name can be found in the middle section of the clasp, and the best quality of this clasp is the quick on-the-fly adjustment system that is executed in a very unique fashion. You simply need to press the logo, which acts as a release for the adjustment system underneath, and simply pull out or push in the bracelet end links to get the perfect fit. This feature on a $3,500 watch is something that baffles major names like Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe and takes them many decades and many millions of dollars to create and implement. Such a small and welcome addition is managed very nicely by this young and dynamic brand. Extending the perception, again, no pun intended, that this is a high-quality modern sports watch from China, the brains behind Atelier Wen went one step further and made sure that the fun doesn't end here. Via the implemented quick-release spring bars, one can easily swap out the bracelet for a number of high-grade FKM rubber straps with matching fitted ends. Blue, black, white and grey colors make for so many combinations that it boggles the mind. We have a sapphire crystal above the dial with anti-reflective coating on both sides for a clear, unobstructed look of the dial and time. Turning the watch over, we come to another design cue that keeps bringing smiles to my face. Most of the caseback is taken up by the embossed visage of a mythical creature commonly mistaken for a dragon, but it is in fact a stone lion. A common feature in Chinese culture, and a pair of such lions are usually seen guarding the entrances to palaces and temples in China. The small cutout of the bottom, closed off by a custom-cut sapphire crystal, gives us a peek at what's inside. On the one hand, the rotor position makes it seem like the stone lion is laughing, whereas the view of the balance wheel, jewel, gear train and spring give us a glimpse of the high-performance movement. Almost all of us assume cheap factory-made seagull movements when we think of Chinese watchmaking, but let me disabuse you of that notion today. The movements used by Atelier Wen are the highest grade peacock movements by the highest grade Dangdong movement manufacturer in northern China. These movements come with a high level finish right from the factory and are regulated to plus minus 10 seconds right from the outset. During quality check, Atelier Wen further regulate these movements to 5 positions themselves, thereby giving better than COSC performance on their watches, although not certified. What's more, these movements are ultra thin at only 3.3 millimeters, which makes them perfect for refinishing and modification, which in turn helps to keep the overall watch thickness at only 9.3 millimeters. These movements are not copies of base ETA calibers, but totally designed from the ground up and manufactured in China. That's how integrated Atelier Wen are to their commitment to throwing light on high-end watchmaking from China. That said, not everything is perfect in Shangri-La. I have a couple of major concerns about the functionality and the movement. Firstly, the crown is a little slippery while operating, and there is a distinct lack of a feeling of locking while screwing the crown in or pulling it out. Second, the seconds hand jumps back and forth when you turn the crown to set the time. Both these issues can be managed by being extra careful while handling the crown, but these may signal a fault in the build at some level and need to be addressed soon. My other challenging yet manageable concern is a lack of hacking seconds, where the seconds hand stops and one can set the time accurately right down to the second. This to me is a relic of the past and something that modern technology can easily negate with barely a few minor changes in movement architecture. Then again, when big names like Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe are unable to move past such limitations, I am sure we can forgive Atelier Wen for the moment, and maybe, hopefully, they will make these changes in the near future. So, for every time someone says China makes only cheap watches, I'm gonna raise them the perception. And every time someone tells me that Chinese watchmaking has no quality, I'm going to raise them Atelier Wen. In the end, the origin of the product may not matter as much if the quality of the product actually meets and even exceeds global standards. There is overall beauty with the perception and an emphasis on delivering high quality. Their logo alone stands for all those things. Look how beautifully designed it is and how much meaning it truly conveys in one simple image. It was a privilege to meet Robin on their recent visit to India. In fact, we hosted a very nice introductory event for Atelier Wen with the best people of the Indian watch collecting community. We have a lot more content about Atelier Wen coming up apart from this review today, so stay tuned, and as always, thank you for watching.